So 1 month post breakup, 2 weeks after finding out she's in a rebound. Where am I at mentally? So I'm still very sad, insanely sad. A lot of my friends told me, give it a month, you'll be feeling a whole lot better. That's not true. I still feel really bad. I'm still really sad. I still really miss her. Um, I still really wish we could have worked things out. None of that has changed. Um, I do have a lot of improvements in my life. During the first, I would say 2 to 3 weeks of the breakup, I was sleeping significantly less. So about the first week post breakup, I was only getting about, I would say about 4 hours of sleep per night. So I would go to sleep and I'd wake up at like 4 a.m. a lot of the times. Like if I slept at midnight, if I slept at like 8 p.m., I'd wake up at midnight. So I was having a lot of 4 hour nights. Now I'm back up to seven. Usually I sleep 9 to 10. I'm waking up after 7 hours of sleep every single day. It is what it is. Nothing I can really do about that. My diet significantly had decreased during the first 1 to 3 weeks of this breakup. Right now, my diet is it's getting better. Usually, I eat between 3,000 to 3.5 thousand calories a day. It dropped significantly. It dropped to like 1,000 to 2.5 calories a day, which is a significant drop. I actually did lose some of my strength in the gym. Surprisingly, I've lost quite a bit of weight. It is what it is. I'll get it back. It was hard. Usually, I eat like one or two big meals per day. Usually, that's kind of how I like to eat. I've had less appetite, so it's been a lot harder. I've had to split my one meal into like multiple meals throughout the day. My appetite is coming back. It's not completely there, but it's almost back. It's really close. Um, I was able to eat 3.2 calories yesterday, so that was good. Um, Other days I just can't. Like I did that yesterday, but then the day before it was 2.5K. So it's consistently going up. I think it's just gonna keep going up. Um, I still get anxiety thinking about it. I still get really sad. Like I'm super anxiously attached. So if you don't know, when we are romantically attached to somebody, when we're in love, we have what's called an attachment style. So an attachment style is just a way you attach to your partner, and it's a way you fall in love with your partner. I have an attachment style, which is the anxious attachment style. And people who are anxiously attached, they're afraid of being alone. They're afraid of losing their partner. They panic when their partner pulls away from them. They get really scared when their partner shows signs that they might not want to be with them, that they might pull away from them. And so it's weird because I feel like in the context of a relationship, I feel like very secure. I feel like I articulate my emotions and needs directly, which is like what a secure person does. It's weird because when I go through a breakup, I feel more anxious. It's like I want to fix things. I want to because this is what like anxious people do. They try to fix things. They try to reach out. They try to rekindle the relationship, which is all the stuff I get. But knowing she's in a rebound relationship really kills those urges. But I still have the feelings behind those urges, if that makes sense. I still get the feelings of panic. I still get the feelings of like, oh my god, I'm losing her. I've already lost her, but that's just how it feels. Um, my brain and my mind wants to try to rekindle things, but at this point in time, she's in a rebound relationship, and it's over. And I've logically accepted it's over. It's just that my body, my mind, my emotional perspective just needs to adapt to that, and it needs to accept that this is actually over, and that there's no coming back from this. It's over, and my brain is still attached to her as a romantic partner. It's not easy. When we go through breakups, and if you actually study the brain, the chemicals that are produced during a breakup are similar to that of like an actual drug withdrawal. So when you're going through a breakup, it's tantamount, which is similar to literally going through like a drug withdrawal. So your body just becomes attached to this one person, and you have to give your body time to unattach. I've also used this as a good time to just stop drinking caffeine. So it's probably not helped that my body is addicted to two drugs, which is this girl and then caffeine. And I've just stopped both at the same time because I'm like, I just don't care right now. It's probably not the smartest thing to do, but it is what I've done just because, I feel so little motivation, which is an aspect which I should talk about. Um, it's been very similar to like my depressed days. I remember I was very depressed back in like middle school and high school days, and before this relationship, I was actually in a really good place mentally. I was probably the happiest I had ever been in my life. Post breakup, I'm back to that place where it feels like the worst depression of my life again. Like back when I was in middle school and high school, that's how depressed I feel. It feels really bad. And with that depression comes with this lack of enjoyment of things in life. So I love to create. I love to like, this is an example of creation, creating YouTube videos. I love to write music, record music. I love to produce music. I love to do everything creative. I love to write stories. I've not done any of that because I just haven't enjoyed it. I've just been so depressed. The only kind of creativity I could do is these videos where I just talk and I vent about my breakup experience. And not only is it just fun creatively, it gives me like a passage to the past. Because in a year, or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, it gives me like a vessel to see how did I feel back then? How did I feel a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even just 6 months ago? I'll be able to look back and see, wow, I've came so far. And not only that, it helps me process these emotions because I'm gonna be honest, a lot of time I try to ignore these emotions. I feel them and I don't process them. The only time I really process these emotions is when I journal. So I'll write in my journal on my I have like a Google Doc which is called my breakup journal. And I'm gonna be honest, it's really funny because we've broken up quite a few times. So you'll see entries like from last year where we've broken it off and gotten back together, um, which has been a staple of our relationship. I suspect that she has fearful avoidant attachment style. I've done a lot of research into breakup and makeup relationships, and she's almost most definitely what's called a fearful avoidant. A fearful avoidant is just a person who craves intimacy but is afraid of it at the same time. So because of that, they get really close, but then they push away. Something happens that makes them afraid. So in my circumstance, we got into this like fight. So I'll just give it a brief rundown of like what happened that caused us to break up. Basically, something would happen. So some kind of stimulus would trigger her anger. Something would happen and she would get mad. And then she would react in anger. And I would tell her, hey, I can see you're angry right now. This is like literally like our last 5 arguments were exactly like this. A stimulus gets her angry. I respond by saying, hey, I see you're angry right now, but I don't know why you're angry and I don't know what you want me to do about that. Could you help me understand why you're angry, and could you allow me to you tell me what you want me to do to help make you feel better? That's exactly, every fight went like that. And then when I communicated that to her, like, I don't know why you're angry and I don't know what you want me to do, she got really mad. She would escalate. A common thing she would say in all those fights, like in all of our last 5 arguments, she said this exact same thing. So this was like a reoccurring thing. She would say, you don't like that I don't communicate the way that you don't. That she would say, you don't like that I'm not communicating how you want me to communicate. And from my perspective, that's kind of not how I interpret it. I just genuinely didn't understand why she was mad or what she was angry about. Like, for example, the last fight we had, like, this is a direct example. She said that you think this. So she said, I think something. And I said, no, I don't think that. I think this. She got mad and she hung up on me. And then again, I texted her. I was like, I really just don't understand why you're angry. You hung up on me and I don't understand why you're angry. And then she escalated. She was like, it's always like this. I'm always telling you what's wrong and then you're never fixing it. So I'm saying all that to say is what she seems to be afraid of in the context of our relationship, at least what I perceive to be triggering her, is conflict. I think she's afraid of conflict. I think it scares her in a relationship when there is conflict. I think it scares her that I try to encourage her to articulate her emotions more directly. I think both of those things scare her. And I'm not mad at her for those scaring her. Like, she's traumatized. She had people that have like this fearful avoidant attachment style. They're typically like really traumatized throughout their life. So I'm not like sitting here. I'm not like angry at her. I'm not like angry at her because she struggles with this. But I'm hurt. I'm hurt and disappointed that this is the path she take. Instead of trying to heal her trauma and trying to heal her patterns, she just kind of fed into them. And, now we're here. So I'm not mad at her or anything for this, but it's depressing because especially when you believe you have the proper diagnosis of the problem, it's like imagine you catch your cancer at a point in time, like let's say you have skin cancer, right? And you catch the skin cancer at a point in time where it's on your skin, it's really easy to remove. You just cut it out. It has not spread anywhere, right? That's kind of what it was like in our relationship. Like we had some issues, but we had caught them. Like we caught that there was an issue of the fearful avoidance. We caught some insecurity. We caught not directly articulate emotions. We caught all these issues. And it was like, okay, if we fix these things before it gets to a point of no return, we could actually create a good relationship for both of us where we could both be happy in the long term. And I'm really sad because from my perspective, it feels like we didn't do that. And it feels like we got to a point of obviously no return because now she's in a rebound relationship. And that's the point of no return. It's the point where we've given up on trying to improve for each other and we're trying to find that happiness from somewhere else. And that's what makes me deeply sad. It makes me sad because I truly believe that I believe almost all issues in relationships can be fixed and worked on. The only problem is sometimes people don't want to work on those issues because it could be because they don't recognize those things as issues. Maybe they don't even believe those things are issues. Because I know from her perspective, she doesn't really believe that her method of articulating her emotions is an issue. From her perspective, she is articulating her emotions directly. And I'm not mad at her for thinking that. I'm not like, oh, you're such a moron. You know, I got to keep saying I don't hate her. I don't hate her. I'm not mad at her. I don't think she's a horrible person. I don't think any of that stuff. I think she's just a person who has a lot of trauma. She struggles to regulate her emotions. She struggles to articulate her emotions. And I think she's also deeply afraid of being alone. And she's trying to find what she perceives to be the perfect partner that will fulfill her needs for intimacy without any of the bad stuff. But I think what she'll end up realizing is that there's always going to be the bad stuff. You know, she's in a rebound relationship right now. And I guarantee you right now, it's probably perfect. She's probably really happy. Everything about that relationship is probably going perfectly well. And there's probably no issues because that's just what the honeymoon phase of a relationship does. It makes us really stupid and we don't really notice the flaws in our partners. And she's probably not even getting triggered herself because the things that I would do that would trigger her, because she was so used and accustomed to me and my patterns and stuff, and because we weren't in the honeymoon phase, it was probably easier for me to trigger her. She's probably not getting triggered at all, if at all, by her new partner. So it's going to start off at this point where it's like, yeah, it's like super ideal. We don't ever fight, blah, 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 which I don't even think never fighting is a good thing. I think if you don't fight, I think that's a bad thing. I think if you don't fight in a relationship, it's representative of like one or two things. I think if you don't fight in a relationship, either a person is people pleasing, which means if you're not fighting in a relationship, that potentially means that one person is just saying or doing things to make the other person feel good, which isn't good. Like, if somebody is just doing things because they don't want you to react in anger because they're afraid of triggering you, they're not being their authentic version of themselves. Like, imagine if they're hiding things from you, like, oh, I'm just not going to tell you because this will make you angry. That's one thing I always prided myself in my relationship with her, and I always told her, I was like, one thing you don't have to worry about me is I'm not going to lie to you. No matter what, no matter how angry you get with me, I'm never going to lie to you just to not get you angry. And I would tell her this. I would be like, I'm not going to lie to you. Not because I'm like, it's just like I have such strong beliefs about authenticity and being truthful and honest with people. I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to tell you stuff that are not true. It's just my moral compass. I think there are times where lying is not morally wrong, and I think there are times where lying is not bad, but I'm not going to do it. At least not with my partner. That's just my personal ethical framework. I'm not going to lie to my partner. But what you can get in these relationships where somebody gets really angry and doesn't know how to control their anger, you might get partners who do what's called people pleasing, where they say and do things because they don't want to trigger their partner's anger. I'm just going to say this because I don't want them to get angry. This actually happens in a lot of modern relationships. I think if we took the average relationship, the average guy, I think, is doing things to not trigger his wife, to not get his wife angry, which I always thought was like not a good thing, because if you got to lie and you got to hide things from your partner just to not get them angry, it's like it's not a real relationship. If I can't be honest with you about how I truly feel deep inside without worrying about you getting angry at me, and then also using that anger in an unhealthy way, because, you know, I should clarify, it's not bad to be angry. Anger is a good emotion. Anger tells us, it's communicating to us what we don't like. Anger is not a bad thing. What's bad is what we do with that anger. If we get angry and then I slap the fuck out of you, that's obviously not a good thing. But if I get angry and I say, I really don't like that you did that, that's not a bad thing. If anything, that's a good thing for the relationship, because then you're establishing proper boundaries about what you don't like being done in a relationship. So I think people have this misconception that anger is this bad thing. Anger is not a bad thing. Anger is actually a very good thing for the context of a relationship. Anger tells you what you don't like. And once you know what you don't like, you could establish boundaries so your partner cannot do those things that make you angry. Or, there's another alternative. Maybe you figure out why it makes you angry. Maybe you're getting angry because it's like unhealthy anger, but that's a completely different conversation. My entire point is, at this point of the relationship where her rebound, I guarantee there's not a lot of anger. There's probably little to none. There's probably little to no fights. It's probably perfect. But what's going to end up happening in the long term is there will be a fight. There will be a trigger. And from my perspective, because she hasn't worked out these issues that caused me and her to fight, especially since I perceive myself to be a really good articulator of my own emotions, what's going to probably end up happening is she's going to get to this point where she gets into a fight and she's not going to know how to handle it, because she hasn't built the skills to regulate her own anger, regulate her irritation, and to de-escalate these fights. So a relationship is always going to look great from the start, but what ends up happening is you realize your partner is never perfect, and then you have to make a choice when you find out your partner is not perfect. You have to ask yourself, am I okay with my partner's imperfections? My partner isn't perfect. Am I okay with these imperfections, or do I want to work with this person to try to make this relationship as good as possible? Because a part of a relationship is acceptance. Because every single partner you have is going to have aspects you like and aspects you don't like. So you're going to have to ask yourself, am I willing to accept everything I don't like for the things that I do like? And if I am, how can we minimize the things I don't like and maximize the things I like? It's all about compromise. So you might want a partner who likes to watch TV with you, but you might find a partner and he's like, I just don't like watching TV. I'm sorry, it's just not my thing. And that's, you have to say to yourself, am I willing to accept, is the benefits of this relationship worth the trade-off of a partner who doesn't watch TV with me? Ultimately, I don't think hobbies are that important of a thing. Maybe it's a bad example, but it's something to get your mind going. It's like every relationship has pros and every relationship has cons. There's going to be things about your partner that you don't like or are not ideal. And there are going to be things about your partner that you like. And you have to ask yourself if the pros outweigh the cons. And that's what happens when you get past the honeymoon phase of a relationship. So I know she's going to get to that point where everything is shaky waters and everything is not perfect. So my perspective on a relationship has always been, if there is a problem, let's just fix it. There's no point in trying to look for happiness somewhere else if you find somebody you love. This is my genuine perception of this. If I love you and you love me, why look somewhere else? Let's just try to make this relationship as happy as possible for both of us. And I feel like if we could approach a relationship like that with a team effort to say, how can we both be as happy as possible in this relationship? I feel like that's where relationships are at their best. But a lot of the problem with a lot of these modern relationships is people don't perceive it as that. They look at the relationship as what can I get from it? And how is my partner not completely fulfilling my needs? But the thing is, no partner is going to completely fulfill your needs. It's not possible. But a lot of people kind of perceive relationships like that, where they're like, okay, if you can't do this, I'm just going to find somebody who does it. And the problem with that is you view your partners as expendable. And then you're not looking to yourself to see, what can I improve to make this relationship better? It's not really good. If you want a really happy, healthy, long-term relationship, you have to be willing to change and adapt. It's not even about being better. It's just about adapting. Some partners are just going to need more time with you. Like, for example, you might get a partner who wants to spend more time with you. That might be an adaptation you need to make for the longevity of your relationship. Or on the reverse end, you might find a partner who needs more time alone. And the adaptation you might have to make for that relationship is to spend more time alone and to give them their alone time. So every relationship is different. So when you just look at the flaws of your partner and you're like, I'm just going to find somebody who doesn't do this. Okay, you might find a partner now who spends more time with you, but now there might be another issue, like their emotional intelligence is worse and they're not good at articulating their emotions. Maybe when you guys get into conflict, instead of trying to resolve the conflict, they walk away. Now you have a completely new issue. And if you're not willing to compromise and solve the issues with your partners, you're just going to end up trying to look and look and look. I'm going to find a person with no issues. Everyone's going to have an issue. There's going to be some kind of issue, and there's going to be something you are unsatisfied with in every single relationship. Fact of the matter. There's no perfect relationship out there. And you have to just be willing to work with somebody you love. And that's why I've always been like, if I love somebody, I want to work out with them and try to make this relationship as happy as possible for the both of us. I think it's just a far more productive way to approach a relationship. Just my perspective. You could agree, you could disagree. It's just my perspective. So I know that there's going to be a point in time where her rebound most likely falls apart. I know more than likely there's going to be a point in time where that rebound, the fantasy that she's living in right now, and it's like, I'm not wishing on her downfall. Okay, I am. I'm not going to lie, I am. I mean, I want her to be happy, but at the same time, there's a part of me that's like angry. There's a part of me that's like angry, like, oh, you would just leave me and you would replace me that quick? Bet. I hope that nigga's not as good as me. There's a part of me that truly does think that. I love her, but I also am possessive, and I'm jealous too. There's a part of jealousy where it's like, I wanted her for myself. So now that she's with somebody else, I'm angry and I'm jealous. I'm like, I'm hoping that relationship fails. I want her to know that she had a fucking real nigga that was really willing to work on the problems of the relationship, that was willing to adapt to try to make things better for the both of us. And a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people have these really selfish traits. A lot of people are not in touch with their emotions. Like, all these things that I had that are positives, I'm like, okay, bet. I'm preying on the downfall so you could realize what you lost. And I don't think that's malicious. I think that's just a normal way to think. When something doesn't work with somebody, you have like this kind of anger towards them, especially if, from my perspective, it felt like she wasn't willing to try. Even in our last conversation that we had, she was literally saying, you won't change this, and this is the problem. You won't change this. You won't do this. And from my perspective, that's the perspective of a person that wants the partner to change, but is not willing to change anything about themselves. Because a relationship is a two-way street. If there's a problem, a lot of the times there's something that you might be doing that's contributing to that problem. So it felt like she was not willing to like self-reflect on her portion of the bad in the relationship. She was so focused on my negative contribution, and I wasn't perfect. I'm not going to sit here and act like I was the perfect boyfriend, but I think I could have had a happy relationship with her, and I think I could have a happy relationship with almost anyone, as long as they're willing to work on their problems. That's the caveat. You have to be willing to say, what am I doing that is jeopardizing our relationship, and what can I do to improve the relationship? And as long as I get a partner that is willing to do that is willing to ask themselves, how is this relationship not working for us, and what can I do to improve it with my partner, I can make any relationship work. Because I am a great problem solver. But I can't solve a problem that a person is not willing to solve with me. So if I could tell you the solutions to your problems a million times, if you're not willing to do the things to solve those problems are going to persist forever. And a relationship is kind of like that. I could recognize what the problems of our relationship are. Like, I could recognize, okay, the problem in our relationship right now is the fact that when we fight, when I tell you something you don't like and you get angry, you hang up the phone on me, and then you don't answer when I try to call you back. That is like an identified problem, right? But if you say, I don't care, I'm just going to do that anyways. That problem and anything that persists from that behavior, and any problems that stem from that behavior, are going to persist in a relationship. I can't make you not hang up the phone when you get angry. There's just like a certain level of like what you have to do. So if I get a partner who's not willing to change their maladaptive behaviors that are negatively affecting the relationship, if I get a partner who's not willing to do those things, there's nothing I could do. I'm limited in that sphere because you're not willing to fix these things and make the relationship better. And it's not about what I want. It's about what is healthy and conducive to a healthy relationship. Because just scientifically, when we study happy relationships and healthy relationships, a thing that makes relationships less happy and a thing that causes relationships to be more unhealthy is stonewalling, which is what that would be. Is when you get angry and triggered at something your partner says, you just hang up the phone on them and you just don't communicate. That's stonewalling. That's like, from my perspective, that's not a subjective thing that's wrong. That's literally an objective thing that we have proven with science is objectively just wrong for the relationship. But there's also another part that is not objective that is still important. So not only does that type of communication make the relationship worse, and not communicating like that will make the relationship better, but subjectively it just makes me feel bad. It hurts me. In fact, it made me angry. Anytime that stuff happened, I would just get angry. I wouldn't be like sad, like, oh my God, I would actually get angry. And then I would just get mad, and which I don't know if that's the common reaction to Stonewall, and that was just my reaction. And it's important when our partner feels emotions, even if that emotion is anger, that we take note and we say, that's interesting. My partner got angry when I did that. Why did they get angry? So I think it was also like, regardless of it being healthier for the relationship, just because of the fact that it made me angry when that behavior was done to me, I feel like it should have been a concern for the relationship. That's just my perspective. If something makes your partner angry, it's important to talk about it and have a discussion with your partner. Ask them, why does this make you angry? Why do you feel this way? That's a good thing. It's a good thing because anger is communicating to us what we don't like. So regardless of if it's a healthy or not healthy way to communicate, which I do think is a good basis to determine whether or not you should be doing those things in the context of your relationship. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's not an important basis. But even if we didn't know that, like even if we didn't know stonewalling was healthy or unhealthy, the fact that doing that made your partner angry, it made your partner feel a negative emotion, that by itself should be enough to make you say, this behavior negatively affected my partner, and I care. I'm going to try to understand why this behavior made my partner feel a negative emotion so we can move the relationship in a positive way. Because if you don't understand why it makes your partner feel that way, you can't really solve the problem, right? So if your partner just gets angry and you don't understand why they're angry, there's nothing you can really do about it. Like, for example, let me give you a direct example so you really understand what I mean. If the aspect of the stonewalling that makes me angry is the fact that I feel unheard, you could change the behavior, right? So instead of hanging up the phone when you get angry, you could just stop talking. And then I could talk to you and you just stop talking, which technically is stonewalling, so I guess it's not a good example, but it's more so the behavior has changed, right? Instead of hanging up the phone, you just go silent. That new behavior may result in me still feeling like angry because I feel like the things that I am communicating are not heard. So if you don't understand why your partner's negative emotions are triggered, you will not be able to correct the issue. So it's really important when your partner feels negative emotions to like take note and to say, why do they feel this way? And these are all skills like that I feel like she doesn't like she hasn't built. So I feel like it's going to be really hard to have a happy long-term relationship because every relationship is going to fight eventually. Every relationship, you're eventually going to get the fights. And then this fear she has, this deep ingrained fear of like her partner not being another fear she had was like her partner not being like the right one. She would always tell me, maybe we're just not meant for each other because we're so different. Which I inherently don't necessarily agree with, but I understand that. I understand that one is like less of a thing, but it was more so ingrained in her coming from a point of fear rather than a point of like actually like really thinking about whether or not we're actually for each other. But I am definitely preying on the downfall I'm definitely preying on the downfall of her rebound. Just because I like to feel like I'm right, because if the rebound fails, it's almost like vindicated. It's almost like I was right. There was problems on your end that we need to solve. Because I remember one of the last conversations that I had with her, I was like, I don't know if this is ever going to work. I said to her, and I said the reason is because you don't recognize your negative contributions to this relationship. And I told her, I was like, I think you might never recognize your negative contributions towards this relationship unless we split up and then you recognize that these patterns persist in your future relationships. And I told her I don't want to break up, but at the same time, you're not willing to work on these problems. You don't even perceive these things to be problems in the context of our relationship. And I asked her, and I said, so if you don't perceive these things to be problems in the context of our relationship, what should I do? Because like, let's assume that these are problems in our relationship. What can I do? Like literally, let's assume I'm right. Let's assume that there are behaviors that she is doing that is lowering the quality of our relationship. What can I do? I don't really have a lot of options. I could tell her, hey, These are problems and they affect me. And then if she doesn't do anything about them or agree, my only options at that point are to like stay and accept these behaviors forever. Which, to be honest, I think I really was willing to, because I loved her. And like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. As much as I wanted her to change for the better, I still loved her in spite of that. And a lot of people say I lack self-respect. I don't necessarily disagree, because like I was most likely very willing to stay in this relationship in spite of how she was treating me, just because I loved her. It's really weird. I just don't like to give up on people. I really don't like to give up on people. I don't like to feel like I've abandoned people. I don't feel like, and maybe that's my projection, because I have this like anxious attachment style, and maybe I'm projecting that onto her. But I really don't like to give up on people, and because I loved her so much, I think I was very willing to accept this treatment. But it was not a sustainable long-term relationship. It just wasn't. I was super unhappy. I have a lot of, it's weird because these videos, I've always kind of done these videos, but more so like to myself. Like I have iPhone voice memos that in my notes, and I was listening back and I was like, wow, I was very unhappy in this relationship. I just record my thoughts as like fights happen, and like I listen to myself and I'm like, wow, there was a lot of unhappiness in this relationship, a lot of unmet needs. And that's just not sustainable for a long-term relationship. It's not sustainable to be consistently unhappy, to be consistently complaining about your partner. It's just not sustainable. And so in the long term, I think this breakup is going to be a good thing. I think it's just going to be really hard, because I'm the type of person who, when I look back on a relationship, I overblame myself. So it's fascinating, because I think she has the opposite problem. I think she overblames her partner, and I think I overblame myself. So I do this weird thing where I think about all the bad stuff that happened in a relationship, and it's like, dude, there's a psychological name for it. I literally just can't think about it, but I basically will blame myself, and I'll say, what could I have done to make this better? And then I think, if only I did this, this wouldn't have happened. If only I did this, this wouldn't have happened. I basically blame my behaviors, and I say, okay, if I did this, or if I do this in the future, this result will not happen. And it makes sense. It's kind of like a biological adaptation, right? We're assessing our past behavior, and we're basically saying to ourselves, okay, this happened because we did this. Let's not do this again in the future. It's basically our brain trying to learn from our mistakes. But the problem is, when you overtake accountability, the end result could be bad, because then you get this point where you're just so sad. You're like, I fucked the relationship up. It's all my fault, which is a point I've been to a lot over the course of this breakup, where I'm like, I literally got to this point where I was blaming myself over the last argument, where I said to myself, maybe I shouldn't have told her that I don't know why she's angry. And maybe I shouldn't have told her, could you help me understand? But then I think about it, I'm like, okay, is there really a problem with telling somebody how you truly feel? Because like, it's not like I was lying. Because I really think about this, right? I wasn't lying. I literally told her, I don't understand why you're angry, which I don't. Because like, really, when you think about it, all I was doing was telling her that her interpretation of my thoughts were just not true. So I was just telling her, hey, this is what I actually think. To be honest, I don't understand why that would make somebody angry. So it's not like I was lying. I was just telling her how I thought, and I asked for her help. And so I really have to rationally think, is that wrong? Did I do something wrong in the context of this relationship to mess it up, to hurt this relationship? And I think about that, I'm like, no, I didn't. I don't think I did, at least. I don't think it's wrong to tell somebody you don't understand something. I don't think it's wrong to ask somebody for help. In fact, I think those are probably the healthiest things somebody could do for the relationship. You know what? One of the worst things you could probably do in that circumstance for your relationship, not ask questions, assume, and just guess. Those are things that I think are the worst, because then you don't understand why your partner feels the way they do. You know what I was talking about earlier? It's like, if I don't understand why you feel the way you feel, how can I fix that? So I said something that makes you angry, and like, let's just take a guess, right? Why would somebody be angry when I tell them that what they think about me is not true? The first thing that comes to mind is they might be mad because they have emotion tied to the narrative that they have constructed. So if they've constructed a narrative, like let's say she's constructed this narrative that is convincing her that we would not be good as a couple. Me telling her that narrative is not true might actually trigger her anger. So that's one thing. But maybe that's not why she got angry. But let's just roll with that for a second. What can I do in that circumstance to make her not angry? Feed into her narrative is the answer. And so if she's angry because she is and to be honest, if she has done this, it's going to be very hard for somebody to even acknowledge that they're doing this. Like this would probably happen at like a subconscious level. So her crafting her own narrative would not just be like this conscious thing that she's choosing to do. Oh, I'm consciously choosing to craft my own narrative, and she's probably not doing that. It's probably like this subconscious thing that's happening within her brain on a subconscious level. It would probably be really hard to admit to that because from her perspective, it's just the truth. Which I'm okay with her thinking, but I just wish she articulated it in a healthy way so we could really understand why she thought that way. But if I don't understand why she thinks, like, why she got mad at that, right? So if I think that, I might just lie to her to make her feel better. But that lie, that causes a new issue where you get into the people pleasing, right? It's like, okay, if she's going to get angry because she's crafted a narrative in her head, then I just got to lie to her. And that's, me, personally, it's not a relationship I want. As sad as it makes me, I don't think it's worth lying to a person just to avoid their negative reactions for a relationship. Now, that's just one theory. But, like, that's the problem when somebody's not direct about why they feel the way they do. How can I take corrective action to fix it if I don't know why? Because here's another alternative, right? Maybe she was angry not because it goes against the narrative in her head. Maybe she was angry, for example, because of the fact that she felt, from her perspective, she was opening up to me. And by me saying that's not true, maybe she felt like, you know how people feel like their emotions can be invalidated? Maybe she felt like I was invalidating her emotional experience. Very different, right? Those are two very different things. And those would both have two very different responses, two very different solutions. So that's the hard thing about a relationship. It's like, if we don't know why you feel the way you do, we can't solve it. We can't. So I don't think it's wrong to ask your partner, why do you feel the way you do? In fact, I think it's probably the best thing to do, because once you understand together, we could solve this and make this relationship better for the both of us. That's how I perceive it. So I'm still really sad about this relationship. And I'm going to be sad for a while. A part of me still wishes, even though she's in a rebound, I still wish that we could reconcile partially. And people are going to say, you lack self-respect, bro. I don't perceive it as that. I perceive it as I just love this person a lot. And I'm willing to go very far to make things work. It doesn't mean I will, though. Because I understand we've been trying for multiple years. At this point, it hasn't been working. And at this point, you know, I got to accept, like, it just wasn't working. And there has to be change somewhere. I can't be the only one changing my behaviors to try to make things work. I just can't. A relationship is not sustainable if I'm the only one that's willing to say, okay, I'm going to do this for the betterment of the relationship. If she's not willing to do the same thing and say, okay, I'm going to stop stonewalling. I'm going to stop. When I get angry, I'm going to stop name calling. Because that was a big thing, too, I noticed. When she would get mad at me or something would make her angry, she would belittle me. So if she's not willing to make these changes in the relationship for the betterment, and I'm the only one that's willing to change anything, how is that relationship going to get better? Especially since a lot of the issues come from her lack of regulation of her own emotions. Because you could get into this really dangerous spot in a relationship where it's like your partner is relying on you to completely regulate their emotions, which is just not healthy. Because what am I doing when I do something to try to not get her angry? I'm trying to regulate her emotions. And then what am I doing if she gets angry and then I do all these things to calm her down? I'm regulating her emotions. And I'm not saying people shouldn't regulate their partner's emotions, but when it gets to this point where they're completely relying on their partner to regulate their emotions, that's where a relationship gets unhealthy. And that's a big reason I think this rebound is going to fail. I think a big part of why she got into this rebound is she can't sit with the loneliness and the sadness and the sorrow. So you know what she did? She found somebody to co-regulate those emotions with feelings of intimacy and feeling together. And it's not sustainable long term. And if somebody stays in that relationship long term, it's going to be unhappy. Because we're not going to act like a lot of people aren't in unhappy relationships. Plenty of people are in relationships with people that they're completely unhappy with just because they love them so much that they don't want to leave. That's where I would have been if this whole breakup didn't happen and this rebound didn't happen. So at this point in time, I'm not looking at this rebound situation and like, I'm sad about it. Like, I'm sad and there's nothing I can do about it except let my body like adjust to this new life I'm living right now. I'm sad about it, yeah. But at the same time, this could be the best thing that happened to my life. 1 year, 2 years, we don't know. The thing is, we go through pain in the moment and we just don't understand. We don't know the effect that it is going to have on our life in the long term. So we sit down and like we feel really sad. We're like, fuck, this happened and this is so sad. Yeah, this is sad right now, but how is this going to feel 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, 5 years down the line? I don't know. We don't know. I think that's one of the amazing things about life is the thing that brings me pain today could be the reason for my success in the future. The thing that brings me pain today could be the reason I have the happiest moment of my life in the future. Like, I don't see any path in life where this is not good, a good outcome. The only way this would not be a good outcome is if, for example, she reaches out like 2 months, 3 months, 6 months out, and then like, we just form a relationship again and repeat the same old patterns. That is the only outcome I can think of where this is not going to be good. Because in the outcome where we're just not in each other's lives and we just never talk to each other again, like it's sad to say that, but at the same time, it's not going to be like a bad outcome because what's going to happen in that reality? I'm going to learn to be independent again. I'm going to be happy again, single. I'm going to be alone and be happy. That's not a bad thing. The second potential thing is that like I just meet somebody else who's better for me, who's healthier, who is more compatible with me, who is willing to work with me to form a healthy relationship. And this is not to throw shade on her. This is like, I'm not saying she's a bad person because she wasn't, I guarantee from her perspective, she would say she was willing to work on the things. It wasn't that she wasn't adjusting things. It was more so that she wasn't adjusting the actual problems. It's kind of like if you're sick, right? And your doctor says, take these antibiotics to fix your problem. And then you take the medication, you say, I'm not going to take the medication, but I will blow my nose when my nose is stuffed. And then you think you're solving the problem. You're not going to not be sick just because you're blowing your nose, right? So she was kind of like, she was trying to fix the problems in her own ways that I don't think were actually, the real problems. So for example, one of her solutions to solve our problems was like, I'm just not going to open up to you. That's not going to solve any problems. It's not going to solve any. If every time you open up to your partner, it results in a fight, and you say, I'm just not going to open up, that's not healthy. You have to find out why the conversations are divulging in fights so you could just fix that lapse in communication so that you don't fight. There's something happening in the communication that's making it lead to a fight. So her solutions were never like the good, healthy solutions. A lot of her solutions actually were revolved around the avoidance of her emotions. So a lot of them were like, okay, instead of trying to open up and have conversations about the disagreements we have in our relationship, I'm just not going to communicate them at all to you. That was how she tried to solve these problems. So, and I don't feel like that's the best way, because what's the best way to solve a communication issue? To be very direct about your emotions. Because I think the problem with how she communicated is literally how she communicated. I think the way she communicated her emotions was not direct. She did not tell me how she felt. She didn't explain to me why she felt how she felt. She didn't tell me what she wanted me to do. And a lot of times she was really just insulting me. She was really just like insulting me or belittling me for the things she was telling me. An example of this is, and I have a lot of examples because it's really unhealthy, but like I went through every conversation we have ever had since we first met. I went through every single text that we have ever sent to each other because I wanted to understand, like, I wanted to just assess our whole relationship because I was like, okay, I'm curious. And we fought a lot, and I read a lot of our fights, and I noticed patterns that were happening. And I was like, okay, these patterns that have not been addressed are the reason that we keep fighting. And one thing that I had noticed is that, okay, so the example I'm going to give is we got into this like fight over TikTok. So this is the example of her bad communication, right? This is an example of what I see to be problematic with her communication, where she belittles instead of telling me how she feels. We got into a fight over TikTok. I didn't use TikTok at the time, but I had a TikTok from when TikTok first originated. And I ain't gonna lie, I followed a bit of thirst trap accounts. I followed a lot of these beautiful TikTok girls just because I am a guy. I find girls attractive, and sometimes I would follow girls that I found physically attractive. And she found this TikTok that I wasn't using, but it was in my name still, and she got really mad at me. And then here's how she told me. Here's how she told me her problem with me following girls on TikTok. She said, "You're such a fucking creep. Why are you following girls like this on TikTok? Is this a healthy way to communicate your emotions, to communicate your feelings?" It's not. And a lot of her communication of her negative emotions followed this pattern, belittling me when she didn't like something. And I understand why she does it. She feels like she's basically trying to evoke a change in behavior through shame. The problem is I'm really confident in myself. So when somebody tries to belittle me, I defend myself. I'm like, I'm not a fucking creep. I'm like, and then we would get into these issues where we would just argue. We just argue, and it's like we're arguing because you feel an emotion. You're not telling me that emotion. You're just attacking my character, and I'm defending my character. It's actually really normal. Matter of fact, I gotta pull up ChatGPT because I gotta ask, just like, and this is also the difference, in my opinion, between me and her. I'm very willing to go and ask myself, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is a healthy way to communicate. I'm so willing to do that, but I feel like her issue is like she's not willing to do that. She's not willing to ask herself, is this a bad way to communicate? Is this the wrong way to communicate? Sup, ChatGPT.
Hey, what's up? Good to hear from you. How's it going?
I have a question for you. So, my friend and his girlfriend are in an argument, and his girlfriend told him, so basically his girlfriend found his TikTok account, and on his TikTok account, he's following a lot of like these, some people will call them thirst traps, some people call them e-girls, basically a lot of attractive girls on TikTok. And she told him, "You're such a fucking creep. Why are you following these girls on TikTok?" Do you think this is a healthy way to communicate to your partner?
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty harsh way to put it, and probably not the healthiest way to communicate. I mean, when someone just outright calls their partner a creep, it usually just makes the conversation a lot more defensive, and it doesn't really open the door for any kind of understanding. A healthier way might be to actually talk about why it bothers her and what she's feeling about it, and then for him to explain his side too. It's kind of all about the tone and the approach. So, yeah, that's a pretty rough way to handle it.
So you don't think she's communicating in a healthy way?
Yeah, I'd say she's definitely not communicating in the healthiest way. It's one thing to have a concern or feel uncomfortable about who your partner is following, but it's another to just kind of jump to calling them a creep right off the bat. That can make it feel like an attack instead of a conversation. So, yeah, I think there are definitely more constructive ways.
So if somebody communicates in that way, what is the most likely outcome of that method of communication? If when somebody does something that bothers you, you belittle them and you attack their character, what is the most likely outcome of that conversation?
Yeah, usually when it goes down that road, the most likely outcome is that the other person just gets defensive instead of actually...
Perfect. So exactly. So I already knew this stuff when this stuff was happening 3 years ago. So it's like I feel like I've already solved the problems to our relationship, but at this point she just didn't want to execute the solutions to make the relationship better, which is fine. She can look, but it's like I don't know if there's a relationship out there where a person who gets belittled every time you don't like something they do, it's sustainable. I don't think so, because there's always going to be that one day that person wakes up and they're irritated, and then they do something you don't like, and then you fucking insult them, and then it's like that day they're just like they just lose it. They just get mad. There's going to be that day for everyone. So if we don't form these healthy communication habits, and not only that, it's just not conducive to the change you want. It is not conducive. If you want your partner to change their actions, literally just ask them. It's the best way. Just say, it really makes me sad when I see you following these attractive TikTok girls. It's making me feel very insecure. Could you unfollow them? And then you could see how they really feel about your emotions. But if you don't tell them your emotions directly like that, you don't know how they feel about your emotions. These people might really, and I think that's the sad thing about our relationship. I think if she actually gave herself the opportunity to be direct about the emotions that she was feeling, the things that she was feeling, I feel like if she was just direct and she just said, I feel this, she would see I cared a lot more about her emotions than she realized, because there was almost nothing that I wasn't willing to change. I was willing to change things that I ideologically disagreed with just because of the fact that I loved her. It's actually something I had to learn. Like, and I've learned a lot from this relationship. Like, I'm not walking away from this relationship acting like, oh my god, everything was a failure. I think the person I am today is a million times better for my next relationship because of this relationship. I'm not walking away thinking that this relationship was all bad. I've improved so much better, and I've improved because every time we get into a fight, I always ask myself, what could I have done to make this better? Every single time. Even when she communicates to me like that, we walked away from that conversation, and you know what I did? I reflected. Then I came back to her after that conversation, and I apologized. And I said, I misinterpreted what you were saying. And I said, it's really about how it makes you feel. Even though she didn't express how she felt, I understood that she's only saying this because she feels a certain way. Um, I was like, it's about how you feel, not what we think is necessarily logically right or wrong. And I said, I could stop following these girls. I don't even use this TikTok account. I care about how it makes you feel, and I don't want to hurt you. Even though she communicated to me in an unhealthy way, I was willing to look because I'd realized that a lot of the times we got into fights, it was just ideological stuff. And I was like, it's not about what is like logically right or wrong. It's more so about how the other person feels. So sometimes in a relationship, we do things not because we believe it's right, but we do things because we care about how our actions make our partner feel, and we're going to modify some of our actions to make our partner feel better. That's just the fact of the matter. And so and before I met this girl, I was less inclined to do that. I stopped watching. I don't know if you could say the P word on YouTube, but I stopped watching P content because of that. And it's not. And I actually think P content is really good for the context of a relationship. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually good. Like, I would logically argue that unless it's an addiction, it's good. It's a net positive for relationships. Unless it's like into addiction territory. But any addiction is going to be a net negative for your life. So it's like, it's not exclusive to P content. But I stopped watching P content because of how it made her feel. I stopped following those Instagram model accounts, even though a lot of guys are going to say, you should already know that, bro. You should got the burner account. I didn't even have a burner account, bro. I didn't want to hide it. I don't like hiding things. I just feel like it's so disingenuous, and I don't like to be inauthentic with people. I even stopped following, even though I think this is a little too far in hindsight, I stopped following every single female on Instagram because it just bothered her. And she was like, she'd be like, I'm so insecure. And it's like, I feel like that's kind of a band-aid solution in hindsight. I feel like the real solution was like, why are you insecure and how can we build more security in you? But I also don't mind the band-aid solution. I didn't mind it. Like, I don't need to follow all these Instagram girls. But in hindsight, I don't think that's a necessity. I think it would have been better to address the insecurity. But my point, and that is saying the old me would get caught up on like the logical part of things, and it's more about how it makes you feel. But yeah, I feel like it's hard when you're not willing to look at your negative contributions to the relationship and how your behaviors are making the relationship worse for the both of you. It's going to be hard to make any relationship work. And I don't think a relationship is going to be sustainable if she stonewalls consistently, if she belittles her partner whenever she feels mad, if she walks away from conversations and she's not able to communicate her feelings direct. I feel like it's just going to be really hard, if not impossible, for a relationship to work. So I don't think the rebound's going to work long term. It sure, when it's fresh and when it just started, it might make her feel good now, but I think in the long term, that rebound is just going to fail, and she's not going to be happy in this rebound long term. And my friends are telling me once the rebound fails, she's going to come back. I'm hoping not, because I don't know what my future self is going to do, and I'm really scared. Because there's a part of me that still loves her and doesn't want to lose her. I didn't want to lose her when we were breaking up. I did not want to lose her. So we're going to see what happens. Because a part of me does want to form a relationship with her and try to rekindle, and a part of me doesn't. The logical part of me is saying, bro, she's not fixing these issues. She never was. You just literally went on a rant about all these behaviors she was doing that was bad for the relationship, and about how she literally didn't want to change them, and you're still willing to take her back. And my emotional side is, but I love her. So it's like that kind of constant fight. And the unhealthy thing in my mind is like, it's so unhealthy where it's like I just think I could solve everything. Where it's like, okay, if I know that she's doing this, like for example, if I understand that she belittles when she feels an emotion, I could just try to figure that out myself instead of like just trying to defend myself. But it's really hard because I am a person who really has great pride in myself. It's really hard, but like that's how my brain goes. Oh, I could solve it by myself. I could just make sure. I could just make sure. I could just make sure. I just have to do things that are gonna be what she wants when she's angry. But the real problem with that is you just don't always know what they want. So it's not sustainable. I don't think it's healthy long term. I don't think it's sustainable long term. But we'll see. We're only a month out of the breakup. We're 2 weeks post rebound, so they're definitely they're deep in that honeymoon phase, bro. Like I'm not stupid. I'm not tripping. I'm really sad. And it kind of feels like, man, how is she not sad? But she's not sad because she's found a drug to replace me temporarily. But once that drug wears off and once she grows a tolerance to that rebound, the reality of the relationship will set in. And then we'll really see if that relationship's going to work long term. And the thing that a lot of people don't really think about and a lot of people don't understand is that most relationships fail. Almost all relationships that happen in history fail. Romantic relationships. Almost every romantic relationship that has ever happened has failed. Finding a partner is not easy. And finding a partner you're compatible with long term is not easy. And if it's exceptionally harder if you're not willing to work on the things that negatively contribute to your relationship. Now, I acknowledge that she might stay in this relationship long term, but if she stays in this relationship long term, it's not going to be because it's a healthy, happy relationship. It's just going to be because they're tolerating the relationship. I don't think a relationship is sustainable long term with those unhealthy habits, but I also understand a lot of people are in relationships with significant unhealthy habits that they stay in just because of the fact that they're tolerating it. And I would have probably been one of those people. I was tolerating her negative behaviors, and I had, at that point in time, said to myself, I'm going to just tolerate it my whole life. I don't want to date. Dating is exhausting. I love her. Why search somewhere else? But that's not a happy relationship when you're just tolerating the things you don't like about your partner. So we'll see how this goes in the long term. Road to recovery. Somehow I talked about this for an hour straight. I don't know, but I just wanted to make sure I documented it. It's hard because I'm really sad, even though I've talked about it like really logically. I am sad, but I'm just focusing on myself, focusing on what I got to do, and we're just seeing where shit goes. I'm blocked on everything, so I couldn't reach out if I wanted. She's not blocked, so she could reach out on everything, which is not a good thing. I probably should block her, but I don't want to close that door. I really don't, because I have like these weird, I'm like a hopeless romantic where I'm like, maybe we just need a time apart for her to actually understand these patterns and grow, but I don't expect growth. That's the thing you got to really understand when you're in a relationship you're unhappy with. You have to ask yourself, if this person never changed for 5 years, would I be happy? And the answer in my mind is no. But it's weird because I was still willing to tolerate it, It is what it is, though. Moving on, I'm just focusing on the future. I'm focusing on what I think is best for me. Going back to school, getting my money up, going to the gym. I would try focusing on my hobbies, but it's really hard. Especially because of the fact that it's really hard because of the fact that I'm just so depressed that I'm like not enjoying it as much, but we'll see. We'll see how stuff goes. If you're going through a breakup, I mean, I don't even expect anybody to watch this long. I literally don't think it matters what I say here. I'm just going to end it, bro.